Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Kids repeatedly try to cause car accident and tell me they're going to tell the police it's my fault. Let me start by saying that kids had to be in their late teens or early 20s. Two of them had tattoos, not children but young adults that still act like kids. I, 32 female, work at a barricade company. Easiest way to describe it, I'm the one that closes down the traffic lanes and makes you late to stuff. This happened 2 days ago and I hope my revenge was petty enough, but here you are. I had a lane closure that I needed to take off the road. I am about halfway from when I get a city bus stop with two guys and a girl. They asked me if I could give them a ride so they don't have to take the bus. I said, sorry guys, I can't, I'm working. And continued to take the lane closure down. The girl stood up and told me, I ducking hate rude ugly idiots. I replied, congratulations, and keep doing my job. They keep yelling insults, I ignore them. When I was about 300 away, the yelling stops and I see the guys had gotten up and started throwing the barricades in the street into the lane that is now open for traffic to drive in. I run over and take them out of the road and explain to them if they did it again I would call the cops. Then the girl chimed in, go ahead witch, it's not our fault, you're so stupid, you're forgetting to take them all down. I walk away, they do it again. I called the cops, they said that they would be there as soon as possible. In my experience that means about an hour. So I walk over and tell them I called the cops. And stand there so they can't move them again. After about 5 minutes standing there, the boys told the girl they were going to go get a drink from the Circle K the bus stop was in front of. They left and she would not look at anything but her phone. Now I'm annoyed, I still have more work to do and this lane closure is still up and it's approaching rush hour. And I decided duck these kids. I pulled out my pepper spray and I sprayed the handles of the barricades that they kept throwing in the street and walked about 50 feet away and waiting. The boys came out of the store, put their bags down and grabbed a barricade in each and threw them in the street. But the handles were wet so they only went on the shoulder, so I didn't go to move them immediately. I saw they wiped their hands off on their pants, but because of the bus stop I couldn't see everything. But about a minute later one of the boys got up and ran into the Circle K with his hand over his eye and the ran in there a second later too, though nothing seemed to be bothering him. About 10 minutes later when they came out of the store the cops were just showing up and they both took off sprinting down the street and totally bailed on the girl. I talked to the cops and told them the boys ran off and the girl never touched a barricade, so they were good to go. The girl was crying because her boyfriend left her there. Next one is titled, The Tale of the Van Man and My Petty Plan. So this happened just this morning, and I'm still buzzing from the petty excitement of it. I live in Western Europe, I speak English well enough to be held accountable for it. So I'm commuting to work this morning and a van cuts me off by pulling straight out of a side street in front of me. There's semi-busy traffic but there's a big gap behind me and no need to pull out at that moment. So I flash my headlamps and he gives me the finger out of the window, then proceeds to drive significantly slower than the traffic in front. Nice guy. I'm briefly stewing over this in my car as a queue forms behind me, when I see he has his company name, email and, crucially, mobile phone number on the back. So I decide I'm gonna call the guy on my hands-free and see if he answers. My company phone withholds caller ID, so what is there to lose? To my delight, the phone starts ringing. Even better, the guy decides to take the call by pulling into a passing place and answers. I keep him on the line just long enough pretending I've got a potential job for him that a good 20 to 25 cars have gone past him, then I say, thanks for pulling over and letting me go in front, and hang up. Next one is titled, How I Ended a Karen's Retail HR Career. Background, this was about 6 years ago now. At the end of high school, and for a couple years afterwards, I worked at a higher-end grocery store chain in the Midwest. I had worked my way up to the service desk position where we sold cigarettes, lotto tickets, high-theft risk items like baby formula, and settled coupon disputes and refunds. Quite frankly, I loved my job. All the co-workers got together great, but we had this terrifying HR manager who is the Karen of this story. She sported the classic Karen haircut, very intimidating presence, had a very forced cheeriness, and I believe she was a raging alcoholic, but that's neither here nor there. She basically was the only storm cloud at this job. Behind the service desk we had a broom storage closet. Karen was truly a force to be reckoned with, and everyone feared being in her line of fire. She would nitpick employees on anything she could. Myself and the other service desk employees had taken to using the broom closet to store personal belongings as it was safer than the break room. Things went missing sometimes, kids are dumb. When Karen discovered we were storing our bags and lunches there, she made a point to pull us all aside and inform us that this closet was not, under any circumstances, to be used as personal lockers as we have those in the break room, and the stuff is in the way and slows productivity blah blah blah. Whatever, I'll keep my valuables on me. We all agreed to not store our things in the closet anymore for fear of being written up. Fast forward about a month, I'm going through my shift close duties and get to the part where I sweep the floor behind and around the service desk. I head into the broom closet to retrieve the broom and dustpan, and what am I greeted with? A purse and a grocery bag. Upon further inspection I recognize the purse to be Karen's Few designer purse. You have got to be kidding me. I check the grocery bag tied to it and it has 10 packs of cigarettes in it. 10. Nobody buys 10 packs of assorted cigarettes, so obviously my snooping does not end there. I check the date codes and find all of the cigarettes are just barely expired and unable to be sold. I'm not sure if it carries over to other places, but in my state, expired cigarettes cannot be sold, and must be returned to the proper vendor. Some federal law about a controlled substance or something, I don't know lol, I'm a teenager. I check the receipt in the bag and notice one line of general merchandise at $1. Times 10. At my store we used a general merchandise input with a custom price to charge for items with a damaged barcode and couldn't be scanned into the system. I checked the cashier ID at the top, and who else but the big Karen herself. So, she sold herself 10 packs of expired cigarettes, at $1 per pack. Mind you, these cigarettes sell for about $8 to $10 per pack normally. Not to mention the crime of selling expired cigarettes. That just sounds like stealing, but with extra steps. So I put everything back the way it was, and start sweeping while fuming the entire time trying to figure out what I'm going to do about this, when my saving grace descends from the heavens. The sweet little front-end manager, who is basically a mum to all the cashiers, strolls over to have a chat and ask how my shift was going. I decide it's now or never. Not fully understanding the gravity of the situation at the time, I go through the small talk for a bit before I just casually lay it on store mum that I saw Karen's purse in the broom closet tied to a bag of cigarettes and thought it was kind of weird. All the while remaining innocent and curious, while I wanted to scream about Karen being a thief. To my absolute delight, this comment immediately furrowed store mum's brow, and she came around to investigate. She opened the bag of smokes and her eyes went wide when she realized what I had realized only minutes before her. She was obviously upset at this point, but calmly and quietly told me not to mention this to anyone else. Almost an hour has passed when I see store mum, bag in hand, go upstairs to the conference room, followed the bigwig corporate loss prevention guy, followed by a straight-up police officer. Oh my God. At this point I'm sweating bullets for Karen. I hear Karen get summoned to the conference room over the employee walkie-talkie system. I see her trot up the stairs with a confused look on her face as she glances over at me, still wearing my fake customer service smile. About another hour goes by and my shift is about to end, but you better believe I am not going to miss the end of this. All of a sudden I hear absolute stomping coming down the steps from the conference room. It's Karen. Her face is beet red, tears in eyes, an expression that is the epitome of rage. And she's looking at me. Staring into my very soul. Let me tell you, what, if looks could kill, I would have been splattered all over the walls of the service desk. She's coming right for me, maintaining eye contact, and at this point I'm genuinely frightened, but I keep my well-honed customer service mask on and stare right back. She comes behind the desk and stops a few feet from me, just menacingly staring at me. I can basically hear her blood trying to rip from her veins. We both stood there for mere seconds, but it felt like an absolute eternity. She turns, opens the closet, grabs her purse, and leaves the store. That's the last time I saw Karen. She must have even moved away, because this town ain't exactly big enough for the two of us, if you catch my drift. I pestered store mum about what happened, but she didn't want to disclose much information about the situation, but did mention she was at least charged with retail theft and made passing comments about how she would never be able to work in a retail setting again. Good enough for me. The grocery store was a happier place. Next one is titled, Make Me Wait for My Refund? I'll make you wait to close off the case. About 8 years ago I moved out of my folks' place and into my first home. As a newbie I was thrown into the lovely world of utilities companies and their arcane, Byzantine processes for creating new accounts. One service that was vital for my new place was phone and broadband. For this I looked around, and despite a lot of difficulties with them at work, I went for a package from the largest provider in the country. If I say this company was British and I was buying telecoms from them, you should guess who I mean. Mainly due to the free gifts they were offering if you signed up, gift cards for a large supermarket, great if you're moving in somewhere. Fast forward a couple of years and my initial contract came to an end, and I decided to move over to another supplier, now unfortunately bogged into the big, evil corp mentioned above, but still many times better. I knew that I was out of contract at this point and wouldn't be charged anything for leaving, so happily signed up for the new service. This is where things went a bit awry. The changeover happened as expected mid-month in July. A quick reconfig of my router setting and I was done and saving a bit of money every month. Being the reasonably tidy administrator I am, I cancelled Big Telco's direct debit from my bank account after this point, as I should no longer be charged. And I didn't want them to remain with authority for taking payment from my account. Unfortunately, Big Telco's billing system didn't seem to get the memo that my services had transferred, and not only did they send me a bill for £52.07 for phone and broadband they didn't supply, but as I'd cancelled their direct debit they charged me a £7.50 late payment fee on top of that. I of course immediately complained about this, and my complaints got escalated up the chain until I was assigned a complaint handler at Big Telco. Eventually, after much prodding and complaining, Big Telco worked out that instead of me owing them £52.08, it turns out they owed me £17.31. Buoyed by this news, I planned on spending my £17.31 on beer, chips, crisps and whatever else a single man needs to survive in this workaday world. After a few days I get a check in the post from Big Telco. The problem being that this check was for £9.81, and not my outstanding £17.31. It seems that the billing department hadn't cleared the late payment charge from my account, so the check was £7.50 light, which meant yet another call to the handler at Big Telco. She eventually managed to send out a second check for the missing £7.50. At this point I decided a bit of petty revenge was in order. The complaint handler at Big Telco had asked, after the checks had been dispatched, if they could now close the complaint. Not being in a particularly charitable mood, I said I'd let them close the complaint only after both checks had cleared and the funds were in my account. Now I wasn't petty enough to pay them in separately, but it still took 3 to 5 days for the funds to clear, and as it was the end of the month, that would be one less successful completion on their books for that month. Next one is titled, Keep Waiting for Your Package. I once worked at a courier company. I left to move cities to go to university, but I'd always return during summer holidays during the Christmas period. They were busy, I needed money, it was a win-win for both parties. The first time I was employed there, I was a hard worker. I knew how to get crap done. And I could solve any issue fairly quickly. While everyone needed approval from management for certain things, I could go ahead and do it without asking. Not really relevant, but an example of how much I was trusted. I went back for my last summer holiday before I graduated, so it was going to be my last spell at the place. On my last day, I was walking around not doing a lot. The girls in customer service were slammed, so I thought screw it, there's half an hour left in the day, it's a Friday, I may as well answer a couple of calls, give them a hand. That was a mistake. The first call, and only call, I pick up is a Karen. Karen has allegedly been at home all day waiting for her parcel. The driver who was supposed to be delivering had a mini heart attack earlier in the day and was in hospital getting treated. Everything sounded promising. But Karen wasn't getting her parcel until Monday. Karen wasn't happy when I explained the situation and that she'd be experiencing a delay. Karen flipped her lid. Karen told me that she didn't care, that she hoped he'd never be able to return to work because he was a liability. Prior to this outburst, I was formulating a plan to get her crap out to her, not that I'd told her this unless it didn't come off, under promise, over deliver. When Karen started having a go at me about what she thought about my driver, who was also a close friend of mine, I thought, screw this woman, I'm done trying to help her. I also noticed it was after 5 p.m. and I technically am no longer employed by the company. I give Karen a piece of my mind, with regard to her conduct and opinions on people. Blunt, curt, not rude on the face of it, but dripping in despise for the woman. She picks up on my undertones, and requests a manager. I tell her after 4:30, I am the manager. She doesn't accept this and I let her know that my manager will be in contact on Monday. Manager calls Karen on Monday. Karen obviously complains about me. Manager apologizes that she can't do anything, as I am no longer employed. Now is where the petty revenge kicks in. Karen asks when her incredibly important package is going to be delivered. Manager advises that it seems a request had been put in to return the package to sender, and it was delivered back to sender approximately half an hour before she called. Next one is titled, Jealous Friend Tries to Steal My Girl So I Make Him Homeless. Cast, me equals me, obviously, girlfriend equals my girlfriend, now wife, shitty friend equals shitty friend, second mama equals second mama. Now, onto the story. I met and had been hanging out with this guy for a few years. Every time I would get with a girl, he would without fail try to persuade her to leave me and go with him. Sometimes, it worked, which he would only duck a few times and toss, other times it didn't. These were only casual relationships that I didn't really see going anywhere, so while annoyed, I was like meh. On to the next. Well, back in 2013, I was invited to a Facebook group by a buddy. I started talking to this girl in the group. We are 10 years apart. She was 19 turning 20, and I was really starting to like her. Problem was, we lived in different states. Really, just a 7-hour drive one way, but that's a pretty long way. I jokingly suggested that she come see me for a week to visit. She actually came. We spent the week together hanging out, having sex, going out to dinner, the whole nine. Well, she never left. So we decided to just live together. And I swear, this girl was like steak to my potatoes, peas to my pod. We just clicked and have been together 7 years now. Anyway, girlfriend, me and shitty friend all went out to a local pool hall called Night Deposit where you could get a whole butt mason jar of beer called a Big Mama for $4. Obviously I bought us all a Big Mama. But every time I would step away either to go get more beer, take a pee, he would try to get her to be with him. She ended up telling me all about this later at home, and I was for real getting upset. I'd had enough. I told him if he continues to do this crap we will not be hanging out anymore, ever again. His response? You always get such hot chicks, man. Give me a break. I told him to stop hitting on girlfriend and get his own. He relented. A month passes and shitty friend and I haven't chilled in that time. The very next time we hung out, we went to a place in town called the Pea Patch. Guess what happened? Yes. He tried the same crap. And of course girlfriend informed me of this later. That was it. Now, it should be known that shitty friend lived with his mum. She was a very sweet, very southern traditional black woman, very Christian. She was like a second mum to me. I love her to death. But she has some very simple rules in her house. 1. No drugs. 2. No females sleeping over. If you break her rules, well, let me just tell you right now, you do not want this woman angry with you. I made the mistake of crossing her once and only once. Well, throughout the years, shitty friend had broken these rules constantly. I'm pretty sure second mama didn't know, otherwise I'd have heard about it from him. This dude was always smoking weed in her house. Hey, I smoke too, but those are her rules, not mine. For her, doing drugs was a bigger no-no than the no females sleeping over. I decided to put my plan into action. As it turns out, second mama had known about all the other incursions shitty friend had done, but he was her son and she loved him. I and girlfriend went to second mama's house one day when I knew that shitty friend wasn't gonna be there and proceeded to tell her about all the times he'd stolen my girlfriends and how he was actively doing the same with girlfriend who I thought and believed may be the one. As I was going over the story with her, I could noticeably see the facial expressions turn from sweet to angry. She said to me, "Don't worry about it, baby. I'll take care of it." She sent us on our way after I gave her hugs. Well, that same day, shitty friend called me frantic, talking about how I'm a piece of shit and that I got him thrown out of his house, and I kid you not, he had the audacity to ask me if he could bunk at my place. I told him, "You got me ducked up." Hell no. Eventually, we moved to her home state of R. We try to go back to my home state of TN every Christmas so that second mama and my mum can see our 2 kids, and one on the way, and every once in a while, I see shitty friend pushing a shopping cart down the street. Hey, I warned him. I obviously didn't intend on making him homeless, because that's a shitty way to live. But everyone has choices to make. He just made bad ones. The moral of the story, don't be a shitty friend. Last one is titled, "Talk to me anyway you please?" Nah, have fun losing the entire staff along with the juiciest of juicy contracts. I was a rink rat growing up. The only day I wasn't in the skating rink were the adult and gay nights. Calm down, it was the 90s and that's literally what it was called. Friday night, Saturday morning and night along with Sunday morning and night I was there. Hell, I didn't even leave between the morning and night sessions. I even went Tuesday nights as well. I was serious too. I dove deep into speed skating and not trying to toot my own horn, but I was pretty good and well known. Anyway, I'd been going to this specific skating rink for years and knew everyone. One day, it was right before I started 7th grade, the owner came up to me and asked me to go out onto the rink floor and tell some kids to slow down. I did and came back and he asked me how would I like to make $7.50 an hour, to which I responded, "Do I also get in for free?" He laughed and said of course. Boom. First job and I wanted to be there anyway, so it was the biggest win-win of all time for me. To say I loved it was an understatement, and I did everything besides work the snack bar. DJ, skate counters, floor guard, janitor, hype man, you name it and I did it. It was some of the greatest times of my life. So much fun and the owner was super awesome. Also, we were paid under the table, so getting an envelope full of cash every week just felt like a bonus for having fun. To me it wasn't a job, it was pure fun. It also helped that all my friends were regulars as well. A few years go by and the owner sold to another guy who we will call Tim. Tim could be an absolute nightmare to work for. He changed the entire dynamic of the place and everyone felt it. Now, this skating rink was popular and extremely old. Lots of people all over the city knew of it. My mum and aunt skated there when they were kids, if that tells you anything. Some way or another the new owner set up an juicy deal that had the rink started making a lot of money. On Saturday night from 7-11 it was skating per usual, but from 11 to 2-ish, 3-ish was a club. A local hip-hop station came in there with local label Swisherhouse and turned the place upside down for those few hours. Every week and the place was poppin'. There must have been over 2K people in there on average, and at $20 per person it adds up quick, plus the snack bar would never stop turning out food and drink. We were making stupid money. Bonus. We also found some good stuff when cleaning up as well. Money, knives, weed, jewelry. It was awesome. So Tim has it made, but sometimes he would fly off the handle for little things. All of us weren't sure what his deal was, but he would explode out of nowhere and start talking all kinds of nonsense. I'd started to have enough because we all had worked there for many years without issue. One night he went too far. I don't like being called outside of my name. It's a respect thing. My own mother didn't do it and he for sure wasn't. For context, I was in 10th grade now. One night he was in some kinda mood and for whatever reason was taking it out on everyone. I don't remember the exact situation, but he started freaking out on me at about 11:30 p.m. Now, Slim Thug and Paul Wall were in the building that night, so the place was extra packed. Way more than usual. I'm sure we were breaking all kinds of fire marshal rules. He went ballistic and called me every name in the book while I just stood there with rage building up in me. I'd had enough. For years this place ran flawlessly and everyone loved us, so he really didn't have a good reason to treat us in the manner he did. My plan was formed. I immediately gathered everyone else that was working and we all decided that enough was enough. It was time for a lesson. I assembled the entire crew and all quit on the spot. All of us. That meant nobody to serve food, clean, help the Swisherhouse people, or just carry out general things that needed to be done when 2 to 3K people were in the building. He was stunned, his tone changed and he became very sweet. We weren't having it. As an additional duck I called the other 2 people that were off and they showed up to quit as well. Tim had already reached out so he assumed they were showing up to work. Nope. We left him with 0 workers on the absolute busiest of busy nights and boy did it implode. He couldn't find anyone to work so the place went to absolute crap that night. The on-duty officer told him he needed to figure something out or he was going to close it down without workers. Well, he didn't. It closed down that night and apparently without staff it got nasty. People started having sex, smoking, trashing the place and all kinds of stuff. Shortly after the radio station and label took their business elsewhere and not long afterward the place closed down. He lost his entire investment. This was very bittersweet for me because I loved the place but he ran it into the ground. The building is still standing and I would love to bring it back to its former glory but my pockets are deep enough yet. Maybe one day. Thanks for listening.